pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome, everybody. First thing on our agenda is the approval of the March 23rd minutes. Are there any corrections or changes to those minutes? If not, we'll submit those as approved, as submitted. Next thing is the report of the town manager, Mr. Warner.
Thank you, Mayor Black, members of council. Given the length of the agenda tonight, I don't really have a formal report, but wanted to note the passing of a couple of citizens, one being the mother-in-law of our Public Works Director, D.W. Lawhorn, Ms. Sue Bays, who passed away, and also want to extend condolences to the family of Ronnie Rice, who served as a council member for multiple terms previously with great distinction. That concludes my report, but I'll be pleased to respond to any questions you have.
You bet. All right. Do we have any appearances before council? No? Okay. Council comments. CG, we'll start up. Joanne?
I'm good.
Darren? Steve?
Everything wonderful.
Bruce?
Well, I'd like to extend my condolences to DW and to the Rice family for their passings.
All right. Next thing is report of council committees. I believe the only committee, public safety, met tonight. Stacy, if you can give us a report on that.
Public safety met tonight. Had Chief Creasy and Chief Woodman in that. Went over the Urban Archery Day ordinance, and went over some of the stuff that Chief Creasy was talking about, goals and projects for the next year.
Are there any revisions to the agenda? No? All right, at this time, we'll start our first of four public hearings. So the first public hearing is to permit a private utility solar panels by conditional use permit by Old Yellow LLC. Mr. Warner.
Notice is hereby given of a public hearing to be held by the town council at 7 p.m. Tuesday, April 13th, for the purpose of hearing consideration of request for a conditional use permit for a private utility to install a rooftop solar array on a building located at 503 Longwood Avenue in Medford, identified as tax parcel 194-A-170T, consisting of 8.37 acres. The property is zoned at Central Neighborhood Workplace and is owned by Old Yellow LLC. The request is being made by Old Yellow LLC. Information has been on file in the Office of Planning and Community Development. Anyone who is in favor of or opposed to the request will now have an opportunity to express his or her views at this hearing. And I would like to note that we have received one written comment in favor of the proposal, which has been given to the clerk, will be attached as part of the official record.
Okay. We have one person signed up so far, Mr. Wagner from our electric utility would like to speak for just a second on that.
Good evening. I just want to say I'm not for or against this, but I just want to make you aware that, of course, you all know that this building is a very prominent location in town. And there's been a growing concern about glare off of these solar panels. And throughout the industry now, most jurisdictions in an urban environment, which that is, are requiring something called a glare analysis before they grant permission for these things to be installed. Now, in a rural area, it's not such a big issue because people won't see it, but this is a very prominent location in town, and just be aware that there could be a significant amount of glare that would come off of these panels. In fact, I have some pictures here that I want to distribute so you get an idea of what I'm talking about. first picture is just I believe that's an apartment complex. And you can see how much glare is coming from the panels that are on the roof of that building. Generally, these panels do not make much glare. When the sun is hitting them directly, then they absorb the energy, and that's how they generate electricity. But when the sun hits them at an angle, that's when you have a glare issue. So a glare analysis would look at the aspect of how the sun would be hitting the panels and what the potential glare would be. Now, the second picture there is our own solar farm. And you can see the amount of glare that's coming off of those panels. This was taken while it was under construction. Again, it's not really an issue in a rural setting because there's really no one around to see the glare. But when you're in an urban setting, especially in a prominent location like the middle school is, you could have an issue with glare that might cause neighbors or people in town to object to it. Now, I might also add that the FAA has made a ruling that when these panels are in the flight path of an airport, that they must do a glare study because it could be detrimental to a pilot trying to land a plane. So the issue of glare is becoming more and more prominent when it comes to solar panels, especially in an urban setting. So I would suggest that if you want to pass the resolution, that you add a contingency that a glare analysis be done once they do their design of the system they would like to install. Any questions?
Are you familiar with the time it takes to do something like that and the process involved with getting?
Yeah, it doesn't take long because it's based on the angle of the sun, which can be documented and how the angle of the panels. So it shouldn't take a significant amount of time to
It's
do.
the property owner's responsibility.
Yes, or it's something that we could do and just bill them for that. It's not us personally. We'd have to hire a consultant to do it.
Do you have any idea what that runs?
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
That was just cost on that, if you had an idea.
I'd guess $5,000 to $10,000.
John, you're showing pictures here of, well, obviously we're looking at the solar farm. You will have a glare.
Yes.
This looks like on the parking deck, which is pretty level with the glare shown here.
Yep.
Middle school's probably one of the higher buildings in town.
Yes.
So where would you get the glare back?
Well, and just because it's at a high elevation doesn't mean you wouldn't see it like a halo around the building. I don't know what his plans are, where he wants to put the panels.
Well, you have it on just on top of the building, obviously.
Yeah. So, but nonetheless, I think it's valid to look into the possibility of having glare there, because once the panels are in, it's too late.
John, I assume they put the panels facing south?
Yeah, you're going to, it depends, like the picture of our farm, this was before the panels moved. So the fact that our panels moved, it really minimizes the glare. They were in a fixed position in that picture.
Will these panels move?
We won't know until they give us design. They haven't designed their system yet. I doubt it. It's unusual for panels on a roof to be a tracker system. They're more a fixed array.
Well, do we have any idea whether or not to be noticeable from the street, sticking up there?
Well, we don't know until we see.
Take away some of the ambiance of the old yard?
Yeah, this is going to go in middle school.
Oh, middle school. Okay.
Right. So, but we don't know until we see their design.
This is not going to go on old yellow then?
No.
All right, I misunderstood. I'm sorry.
No, it's not. Old Yellow LLC is the name that Dave has come up with for the project or the property.
That's what confused me. And I confused you.
It's a picture of it.
Okay.
Actually, in point of order.
Yeah.
We don't typically have questions.
Questions in the, I was
Want to hang
wondering.
around for new business?
Okay.
Yeah.
We need to ask you.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have anybody from the applicant? Is there anybody here from the applicant? Okay. Or is there anybody else that would wish to speak in regards to the proposed solar project at middle school? No? If not, we'll close the public hearing at this time. And we'll move on to the second public hearing.
And Mr. Mayor, I would recommend that we take these three items kind of at once, since they're all kind of pertaining to one proposal.
Okay, that's great.
I'm going to read the hearing notice for all three.
Okay.
Notice hereby giving a public hearings to be held for the purpose of hearing first, a request to rezone a vacant lot on Railroad Avenue identified as tax parcel 195-5-1-10-T, consisting of approximately 0.538 acres located on the north side of Railroad Avenue along the west side of the intersection with F Street from M1 Manufacturing District to CNW Central Neighborhood Workplace District. The request is for parking related to adjacent parcels, and the request is being made by 620 Railroad LLC of Roanoke, Virginia. The second request is for consideration of a request for a conditional use permit to allow residential use on the street level at 625 Railroad Avenue, identified as tax parcel 195-A-36-T, consisting of 0.69 acres. The property is zoned CNW Central Neighborhood Workplace and is owned by 625 Railroad LLC, who is making the request, and they're out of Roanoke. The third request is for consideration of a conditional use permit to allow residential use on the street level at 620 and 694 Railroad Avenue within the town, which is tax parcel 195-A-41C-T, consisting of 0.82 acres. The property is owned CNW Central Neighborhood Workplace and is owned by 620 Railroad LLC of Roanoke, Virginia. Information has been on file, and anyone who is in favor of or opposed to the request now has an opportunity to express his or her views.
Okay, so we open the public hearing on the rezoning request for these three parcels down on Railroad Avenue. Is there anybody here, is there anybody who wishes to speak on behalf of the developer, or?
I think the developer has a presentation that might be better.
When we get to new business? Okay, that's fine, appreciate that. Is there anybody that wishes to speak? If not, we'll close the public hearing and move on to the next public hearing.
Notice is hereby given of a public hearing to be held for the purpose of hearing consideration of submissions in response to a request for proposal issued for needs and cost assessments, as well as concept designs for the possible construction of a new town parking deck, police station, and farmers market. That information has been on file in the office of the town manager, and anyone who is in favor of or opposed to the request will now have an opportunity to express his or her views on this matter.
So we'll open the public hearing to the request for proposal for the needs and assessments for the parking deck, police station, and farmers market. Is there anybody that wishes to speak? Randy, do you want to, would you rather do that, speak now, or the same thing, just kind of when we get to the new business, and then you can kind of give us a presentation and your comments at that point, I think. It's just easy, because it doesn't look like there's anybody else here. Is there anybody else here to speak for the public? No, not. We'll close the public hearing on that. So we'll move directly into new business. The first one is the private utility solar panels for Old Yellow LLC.
The subject property is located at 503 Longwood Avenue and is the former Bedford Middle School. Property is owned CNW and is owned by Old Yellow LLC, which is also the applicant. The applicant proposes to construct rooftop solar panels termed private utility in the zoning ordinance. The CNW district allows this with a conditional use permit as part of section 616.01.b. Planning Commission held a public hearing on April 1st, 2021. No citizens spoke in the hearing. The Commission discussed visibility of the solar panels. Plans presented do not show them to be visible from the ground. The Commission voted 5-0 to recommend approval without conditions. Tonight, Town Council is requested to consider adopting a resolution to issue the conditional use permit for the plan presented for rooftop solar panels. As part of a resolution approving the application for a conditional use permit, council may also require conditions, and council also has the option to not adopt the resolution.
Do we have a motion on this matter?
I think we should also look at doing a glaring analysis.
Well, let's get a motion and then we'll, of some type, and then we'll open it for discussion.
Okay, I make a motion that we adopt the resolution allowing the solar panels to be put on the rooftop of the middle school with the condition that we do a glare analysis.
All right,
Second.
second. Discussion.
It's got in the page 3 of the proposal, as on top of the middle school, where the solar panels now, there's a 5-foot wall, basically they're sitting behind that wall that you'll see on top. And as I stated to John, that school is higher than any building in this town, so I don't know where you would get glare from. And that's a pretty expensive analysis based on what he said to do this on the development.
Do we have any idea if Mr. McCormick is open to burdening the expense? If we, it was said by Mr. Wagner, we could bill him, but, I mean, we wouldn't want it to be a surprise bill.
Well, my question is, was this raised during the planning commission discussion?
It wasn't.
Was not.
I mean, it was something I know I thought of, but like Steve had said, it's high up. I mean, I thought, well, I guess they know what they're doing, but I'd hate to just assume it, and all of a sudden we got a problem.
We got a problem. I mean, well,
My question would be, what would it do to the historic places because it's on a national register? Would that affect anything with putting the solar panels on top of the historic building?
I think that's addressed.
That's on page 2.
I think that would be up to McCormick. I mean, what he's got is,
It's on page
fit within the,
just speak to the historic, that they're working with PD.
DHR would have to approve it.
Right, DHR would have to approve it.
I mean, he may be able to have some credits available to him.
So obviously, here's some of my concerns. This is probably the first time we've gotten a commercial building in town that wants to put solar panels on it. So, one, do we have a policy? I mean, I know this is a zoning question right now. I do understand that. But do we have a policy of, one, I mean, do we require, like we do on in many other zoning issues, a site plan? Well, there's no site plan. I don't know how many panels are going on top of this building. I don't know if it's 10 or 50, you know.
We don't know.
So, I mean, I think that could be some information that we might need to determine if we want to do a glare analysis. I mean, I don't, you know, I think we're missing.
We could, I think Mary would be able to speak to that.
I mean, do you know how many, and what our process is? I mean, like I said, I know this is just a zoning question, you know, but I think some of this kind of goes to whether we want this in this district, you know.
Sure, I think those are very valid questions, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Direct you to the staff report where we have a copy of the site plan that's turned in with the building permit, and that's how we have a conversation with the developer this time. If you'll keep in mind, when the rezoning was done on this property, there was a roof on the middle school.
Right.
And when we lost that in the fire, when the developer came back with new plans for that, he included these solar panels on the top, not realizing that there was an additional process that we had for private utility for solar panels, whether they be rooftop or ground mounted. So he's shown that on the site plan page, and I've given you an enlargement of what you can see from the ground or proposed, because the parapet will be what it is now. So the roof line is going to be actually below that roof line, but that plan shows a number of the black lines on that page.
So the black lines are solar panels?
Yes, those are the black lines. So you'll see the cupola, the green roof cupola you're familiar with, but then the black lines are where the panels are
So
going
I
to be.
did see that. I apologize, Mayor.
It's unclear at
but
this
I was
size. I
unclear.
apologize.
Yeah, I was unclear if it was the red, you know, the red things on the diagram, or it was the panels. But I mean, you're talking about, wow, a lot of panels. So, and there wasn't any condition at the planning commission. You talked about not seeing it from the ground, but there was no condition added. And the parapet is talking about the front, the sides,
Correct.
but it doesn't mention the back. So would that parapet be around, I mean, I know it's, the back of the building is the field and the other buildings, but I mean, the people coming up Westview, you know, I mean, they're gonna see, so I mean, if I would certainly recommend that should be a condition, that you can't see it from all four sides, not just three sides. That's just my thought on that, but. Do you
And
know if
I don't
you-
want to answer incorrectly because I would assume that the parapet is, the roof, level of the roof is going to be the same across the building.
Right.
The slope drops off down there as well too, so you're actually going to be further below the grade of the front roof on the back side.
Side, right.
So the idea is we're not going to see these panels over.
That's the intent, and the Department of Historic Resources are also not going to want to see those panels because they're not historic, and they're not contributing
Can
to
we put
that.
that
So-
in there
Yeah, I think we can add that as a condition of,
that we don't see those, because I don't want to see that. I mean, you want to preserve the integrity of the building.
Right.
I mean, I like the idea of passive electricity, I mean, that passive solar, that's wonderful, but we also want to keep the integrity of the building. Don't want to make it too difficult for the contractor, but certainly we can ask at least that much without any hesitation.
What about the glare factor? Do we need to put that in the conditions too?
I think we should, but I mean, that's a lot of panels. I mean, but that's just, I mean, if you don't do it now, you're not gonna get another opportunity later to do it.
It's going to cost about $10,000.
Well, we don't know, I mean, until.
Do you know, Mary John said 5,000 to 10,000, but
Sorry, my technology is a little behind in the solar industry, so I'm not familiar with glare analyses and how they benefit. And then I guess the ultimate question is, what do you do if there is glare after you've given an approval? Not to add.
Yeah,
questions.
exactly. How
What's
do
the
you
remedy?
condition it to say that
Good point.
you can reject it if it comes back and there's glare? Yeah, I don't know how you measure or what is acceptable to, I mean, I don't know.
So I don't know if there's a pass-fail mark on a glare analysis, or it just says that there's 60% reflectivity that will be visible to surrounding properties at this point. I just don't know what your
so if we
outcome is.
decide to do
Mr.
the
Wagner could answer.
glare analysis, we just wait on approving the CUP for the panels. Just do the glare analysis first,
Or have the developer
or have him do it.
require him
Or have the
to.
developer, yes, have the developer.
Right.
So we could table this request.
That's what I'm thinking, yeah.
Just wait on
So you're,
We got 60 days to respond,
Well,
is that right?
60 days from today, right?
No, I don't think this is anything of the council's action.
Blank on this.
I mean, I don't think he's gonna do it anytime soon.
it. Yeah, he's not in a rush on this.
No.
think
Yeah,
that
wow.
was
Well, for this to continue, if you table it, is what I'm saying.
it's either 60 or 90 days for action from the date of the hearing.
One other question I had, obviously, and I don't know if you can answer this, Mary, or not, but, so this electricity that's generated for these panels would just be used for this property, right? Or would it be used to provide electricity for adjacent, I mean, not just the apartment building, but the gym, the hotel, the other part, I mean,
And that's a question for Mr. Wagner as far as our agreements go with
Okay.
that, and I believe there's some code, state code regulations on where that can be used. And we know, we don't net meter, so it wouldn't go back to our system.
right.
So
So I think there's two things here, obviously there's this thing, but we need to, if this is gonna become a thing we're gonna see more and more of, we need to also, I mean, that's a sidebar, but we need to figure out what our strategy and plans are gonna be, and anyway, if we need to make any changes, that's just a sidebar. So, any further discussion or any thoughts on what we want to do
I
here?
wouldn't mind getting a study done and then just see what it says and go from there.
Well, he needs to get studied.
Yeah.
Either way, just so we know what the results are.
And he's got to go
Yeah.
through time.
Would we just need to tell you, or do we need to vote on that as far as the study? 'Cause
I
it's not
think
a,
we should take it.
So we got a motion to table
Second.
in a second, so we're voting, voting on the motion to table, right, Will? We've got a motion and a second to
Table, which
table
means
it.
you can take it back at any time you want.
Right, so that, we're voting on that motion
Yes.
first.
Ready? Mr. Haley?
Aye.
Mr. Hartwick?
Aye.
Mr. Johannesson?
Aye.
Mr. Rush?
Aye.
Mr. Schoen?
aye.
Mr. Stanley?
Aye.
Mayor Black?
Aye.
Motion carries with 7 ayes.
All right, we don't need, we don't do anything, okay. So the next one, new business is we'll put these all kind of
These do
together.
need to be, well, you do need to take these one at a time.
Well, I'll have to vote on them one at a time, but we can read the action report, or do we need it?
I think we need to do separate action forms. because they're
Section
separate
action,
motions.
okay, all right, okay.
Sorry to be overly bureaucratic, but I think that's.
okay.
So the next item of new business is the ordinance changing the zoning map by rezoning property, the tax map number 19551T, 10T from M1 to CNW. Subject property is located on Railroad Avenue. Property is owned by 620 Railroad LLC, which is the applicant. The applicant proposes to rezone the property to CNW to be consistent with other parcels owned as part of a mixed-use plan of development. The parcel would be used for a parking lot to serve the mixed-use development. Planning Commission held public hearings on April 1st, 2021 on this and 2 related land use requests. 4 citizens spoke in the hearing and 1 submitted a written comment. 2 of those expressed concern about whether the housing would be for Section 8, how the parking lot could affect their property, and safety on the road at the curve of Grove Street. All were in favor of the project as an improvement to the community. The commission also found the request to be an improvement. The commission voted 5-0 to recommend approval of rezoning without proffered conditions, and tonight council is requested to first consider adopting an ordinance to rezone tax parcel 195-5-1-10-T from M1 to CNW without proffered conditions. And I do know that the developer is here with a presentation if you'd like to consider that either prior to or in conjunction with the motion on this item.
Would y'all like to hear his presentation before we make any motion? I think that'd be the best way to handle it, Mr. Vail. Appreciate it.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, thank you for having me here. Let's see. It's a very brief presentation. Oh, that's right. Okay. Yeah, so to put everything together, basically we're looking to take in the 620 Railroad Avenue building as well as 625 and the adjacent Lot F and converting it into a mixed-use historic redevelopment of multifamily and commercial uses. Here's just a little image of what we're looking at today. Here's a mock-up our architect has put together so far. We're working with Balzer & Associates out of Vernon, Virginia. They have a lot of experience in this segment. You can see there on the front the current loading dock ramp that extends directly onto Railroad Avenue. It's a little bit of a hazard at this point in time. It's going to be really demolished and then cantilevered off as a covered entryway for the residents as well as a balcony for the unit that it adjoins to. Just another mock-up image here of what we're looking to do to the property, just to give you an idea. This is the site, or these are the sites as they exist currently. We're looking to put in the parking lot there on Lot F. It's currently all impervious surface. We'll just be changing it from what it has historically been to a new asphalt lot, as well as adding some parking there on the eastern side of the 620 Railroad Ave building. lot of times I get a question of why we're doing this for this sort of building. It's a big project. Just to kind of run you through it briefly, there's obviously been a growing resurgence across America. Small towns, you've seen this with Bedford Lofts and Beals and other really cool developments going on in this area, Lynchburg and Roanoke. So we're trying to just kind of follow that model. There's also been sort of a national shift following COVID-19 of folks moving out of the more urban, densely populated areas to smaller micro pockets and towns. But generally, to get the younger people to come and do that, you've got to have some sort of cool factor amenities, and we think this kind of falls right in line with what that goal is. And then just sort of a brief overview. As far as supply and demand goes, as far as is there demand in Bedford, the town specifically, or within a 3-mile radius for more apartment units, this is just a brief rundown of what we're looking at. At an average number of basically two people per renter household, you have a net residual demand currently in the 3-mile radius of 264 market rate units. I mean, that's what the town could absorb currently just within the 3-mile radius, not even looking at potentially capturing some folks that are currently living in the forest areas or just outside that kind of 5-mile radius. So very brief, I just wanted to kind of bring everyone up to speed on what we're doing and what we're looking to do. And obviously the Lot F request that's before you right now is just to make a more cohesive zoning with the C and W zoning that is 625 and 620 Railroad, just for the purposes of making everything kind of cohesive there on that new development. I'm happy to answer any questions regarding that one.
Does anybody have any questions?
Oh, how many apartments are you proposing
Do
to
we
have?
want to make a motion before we?
Yeah, why don't we do that? Let's get
Do you want to make a motion for all three or just one at a time?
We got to do one at a time.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to consider adopting an ordinance to rezone tax parcel 195-5-1-10-T from M-1 to C and W without proffered conditions.
So moved.
All right, so now we'll open it up for discussion if anybody's got any questions. And you can ask any questions on, I guess, all three of them. We're not going to bring you back up each time, Mr. Vaughan.
However you'd like to do it.
So we're just kind of, I think everybody's aware of what you're trying to do here.
Sure.
So, Bruce?
Okay, couple questions. One, about how many apartment units do you think you'll be able to get in? And not only that, but how many jobs are you projecting that could be created from this project?
So the 620 Railroad building is the main thing on our agenda right now. 625 is what I would consider to be sort of a phase 2. Our plan is to clean that building up and use it as a construction office. So I don't want to speak too much to the number of units in there. Obviously, that's a 16,000 square foot building. We've seen that you could probably put about 20 apartments in there. But as far as 620 Railroad goes, we're looking at anywhere from 52 to 57 apartments. We're trying to cater more towards 2-bedroom, a little bit larger size apartments than are typically found in the town. We will have commercial storefronts on the ground floor, at least on the, if you're facing it, or I guess looking at it from Google Maps, on the eastern side, we have 2 tenants ready there. As far as jobs go, I know the 2 retail operators will each have 3 to 5 people under their employee, and then during the peak of construction, we'll have around 50 folks actively employed on payroll, paying payroll taxes and everything. But I don't own those retail businesses. I'm not affiliated with those whatsoever, so they're not my jobs per se.
What is your rental rate's going to be approximately?
Yeah, so our average rental rate is going to be around $850 a month. We're going to have apartments that range from $675 to $1,350. $675 would be your smaller 1-bedrooms. $1,350 would be that 3-bedroom balcony unit right there in the middle. That's sort of a showpiece. So they're all defined as market rate. These aren't Section 8 apartments. They're all going to be market rate apartments comparable to what you would, I guess, consider the Bedford Lofts.
No subsidy?
Correct. Yeah, we don't have any, no financing agreements or anything tied to any subsidized housing.
So
You'll get those calls, that's the reason I'm asking.
Yeah, I mean, just to be honest, the project's not really feasible at those rates. This is a very expensive redevelopment, and market rate is the way we're going to have to move forward, and how we intend to move forward.
So on the 620 building,
Yes, sir.
how much square footage of commercial space are you kind of, I know you got two, but are you going to have some more available?
Yeah,
in
yeah,
addition to
we're going to
that?
have a minimum of 3 spots available, which is about 5,000, about 10% of the building.
10%.
And then within the building, on the ground floor, we have some sections that are a gym and a yoga studio, and so non-residential use, but used for the tenants of the apartment. They're on the ground floor as well. But as far as like street level commercial, it's around 10% of the building size.
What kind of time frame are you looking at?
We have submitted our request for asbestos abatement last week, and there's a 21-day hold period once you do that. As soon as that comes clear, we'll have asbestos removal taking place, and a lot of exploratory demolition and light construction, I'd say, for the next 2 to 3 months, and with the ultimate goal of a Labor Day delivery of 22.
22.
So are you going to have an on-site manager or anything like that?
Yeah, so we use currently with other properties, we use a third-party management company. They are a real estate brokerage out of Virginia Beach. Their name is Howard Hanna. They're brokerages all down the Outer Banks and the East Coast, and also they have a main office locally in Lexington. They also have a new office in Red Oak, and they're about to have a new office within the 620 building there on Railroad Avenue. So they will be on site full-time through lease up, pre-lease up, through stabilization, and then probably 2 to 3 days on site, kind of in perpetuity is our plan. But they do have a little 350 square foot office in there that they plan on being in.
Darren, were there any other comments or issues brought up at the planning commission?
A couple of citizens, addressed the Section 8 issue. They shown up, and the parking lot on one of them, I remember one resident on F Street is concerned about the parking lot back there.
Yeah, I went and walked it. That site was obviously very full of stuff before. If you go onto it now that it's cleared, which you're welcome to, you'll see it actually elevates a lot more than I expected there in the back. But the same architects and engineers that are doing the main planning are also going to do the landscape architecture. We fully plan on having either landscape fencing or traditional aluminum fencing, but something that's aesthetically pleasing along the back side of that property. One, to keep other folks off, and two, to keep, I guess, the view of the cars from those houses. But we fully plan on having that in place. And I think another concern someone had was the traffic. People do really cut through that corner kind of quickly. I know that I've been working with Ms. Circle and a few other folks at the town about where we're going to have a crosswalk placement, potentially some rumble strips, and different kind of streetscape things that will be taking place. Obviously, I think taking that ramp off the front that sits right on Railroad will be a big help, just right out of the gate, basically.
And this has to meet the, is it 1.5 vehicles, parking spaces per unit? Is that so? We don't have any problems meeting the parking?
The site plan I put up there provides enough spots if we built out an even higher density of 620 Railroad and put 24 units in the red building, which is 625. And I don't really think that's what's going to happen with 625. I mean, we'll see here in a few years. I think in the meantime, we're going to study, if a commercial user wants to go into that, I'd like to see a little bit of a different mix into that building. But we do have enough parking to meet that guideline.
And to meet your commercial.
Any issues with the railroad because it's so close to the railroad?
No, I've actually had a really great conversations with the real estate representative of the Piedmont District. Her name is Jenny Miles with the railroad. She's been very, very easy to work with. We actually just signed or are in the process of signing a lease for the strip of land that technically does, technically the ramp along the back of 620 Railroad encroaches onto the 50-foot wide easement that the railroad has. So we're in the process of signing a lease right now just to allow our construction workers to use that. We're going to fence along that side. It's been surprisingly easy to work with them so far. I really enjoyed it. Yeah.
It's good to hear.
Well, yeah.
Well, you got to check whether they were the right of way.
Yeah.
Middle track, not the side.
Well, yeah, it's that, but then they also, if you look in the GIS, it's kind of funny, they actually own a strip where I guess they could put in a future spur if they wanted along that whole roadway, and the building currently encroaches it, surprisingly, but like I said, it's been pretty easy to work with, and we have a 10-year lease in place, so we're in good shape with them. And just to give you all a little bit of background, the lead superintendent is going to be on this job. I don't know if you're familiar with some of the redevelopment projects in Roanoke, the city of Roanoke, but there's the Patrick Henry Hotel, the River House, the Cotton Mill Lofts, a lot of prominent buildings. The same superintendent, project managers that were on those jobs are on this job. I think it's going to be a really high-quality, nice product. We're really looking forward to it.
Any other questions for Mr. Vaughn? Thank you. All right, any further, so we got a motion on the lot, it's the parking lot right now, so any other discussion on that? No? All right. Go ahead and
Roll call. Mr. Hartwick?
Aye.
Mr. Johannesson? Mr. Rush? Mr. Schoen?
Aye.
Mr. Stanley?
Aye.
Mr. Haley?
Aye.
Mayor Black?
Aye.
Motion carries for 7 ayes.
Okay, the next part of the 3-part series is you're requested to consider adopting a resolution to issue a conditional use permit for residential uses on the Front Street level of 625 Railroad Avenue, which is tax parcel 195-A-36-T in CNW without conditions, and the Planning Commission did vote 5-0 to recommend approval of that conditional use permit with no conditions.
All right, we have a motion for 625 Railroad Avenue.
I make a motion to consider that we adopt a resolution to issue a conditional use permit for residential use on the Front Street level of 625 Railroad Avenue, tax parcel 195-A-36-T in CNW without conditions.
Second.
All right, any discussion, any other questions on this property?
I got one question. Excuse me. Any kind of environment issues there with all the junk cars and stuff that was there?
Not so far. No, surprisingly, it was a lot of scrap. They had a few batteries that were laying out in the building, but there hasn't been anything that's come up so far. We had some environmental aspects that came up on the 620 Railroad building with its prior uses that, like I said, the asbestos, lead-based paint, that we're all having all that abated. But no, so far we're actually looking okay. And actually, I was going to mention too, now that I'm up here, on 625, our current plans that we submitted at one point don't actually have any front-facing apartments along the streetscape, but while we're here, I just thought, go ahead and have this submitted as a request just in case that opportunity. I'm not sure how long these conditional permits last for. Do you know how long, Mary? I don't think I've asked you that.
Exercise within 6 months.
They have to be exercised within 6 months? Okay, so, yeah, may not happen on 625.
On the 625. Okay. So on the environmental, have you gone up to what, phase 2 on any of it?
We've done a phase 2. A phase 2's been completed actually with the assistance of the town on 620 Railroad. The 625, I believe we have phase 1 on file, but nothing has triggered the need for anything future, no.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
All right. Any other questions? All right.
Roll call.
Roll call.
Mr. Johannesson?
Aye.
Mr. Rush?
Aye.
Mr. Schoen?
Aye.
Mr. Stanley?
Aye.
Mr. Haley?
Aye.
Mr. Hartwick?
Aye.
Mayor Black?
Aye.
Motion carries with 7 ayes.
Okay, and to conclude tonight's zoning trilogy, you are requested to consider adopting a resolution to issue a conditional use permit for residential uses on the Front Street level of 620 Railroad Avenue, tax parcel 195-A-41C-T in CNW without conditions, and this was also recommended unanimously by the Planning Commission for approval.
Have a motion.
Make a motion adopt a resolution to issue a conditional use permit for residential uses on Front Street level of 620 Railroad Avenue. Second conditions.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? I'd just like to thank you for, choosing Bedford to come and invest your money and take a risk on, helping to build our community. So thank you for that. Look forward to seeing what you come up with on those buildings that have needed some work for many years. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking forward to it.
Well, that building is solid as a rock. It just is not very appealing.
It's impressively built.
Yes.
It really is. I think, obviously, we'll keep everyone apprised as we move forward, but it's going to be a great project.
Thank you for coming here to fix that building up, make it look more appealing, bring more jobs into town, and make our town better than what it was before. Thank you for coming here and doing that.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir.
All right, any other questions or discussion on this motion? If not, we'll
Roll call.
roll call. Yeah.
Mr. Rush?
Aye.
Mr. Schoen?
Aye.
Mr. Stanley?
Aye.
Mr. Haley? Mr. Hartwick?
Aye.
Mr. Johannesson?
Aye.
Mayor Black?
Aye.
Motion carries with 7 ayes.
All right, keep rolling, Bart.
Keep it going.
The next item of new business relates to the Project Advisory Committee contract execution approval. Project Advisory Committee has conducted interviews with firms regarding submissions for the town's request for proposals for needs assessments, cost estimates, and concept designs for a parking deck, police station, and farmers market. The top committee selection was Wiley Wilson of Lynchburg, and Mr. Randy Vaughan of Wiley Wilson is here with us in case you have any questions. But tonight, Town Council is requested to approve the selection of the Project Advisory Committee to allow the contract to be executed and proceed with the scope of work regarding the RFP, and that selection would be Wiley Wilson.
All right, Randy, if you... No, let him do his presentation. Yeah.
Let the mayor run this.
Good evening, folks. Thanks for having me here today. I'm here to represent the Wiley Wilson team. My name's Randy Vaughan. I'll be project manager for the project should you decide to move forward with it. And I've been with the company about 20 years. I'm vice president and in charge of the architectural group within Wiley Wilson. And over that 20 years, one of my particular areas of focus have been public, or what we call the local government work, which is all the town, city, county type of public procurement work. So I'm pretty familiar with that. Done a lot, quite a few of these public safety buildings assessments, and most recently for the city of Stanton, and we are right now completing the construction for a new public safety building in Orange County. So we'll be handling, Wiley Wilson will be handling primarily the law enforcement, the police needs assessment portion of this, as well as the farmers market assessment. With us under our contract will also be Desmond Associates, who will be working on the parking component, and they will be providing a parking study to evaluate the needs of your parking in the immediate downtown area, and then help project how large of a parking structure you would potentially want to build on the lot behind the courthouse down there, as it's been identified, and then to also kind of advise you on what types of revenue streams and so forth might come from that, and how you would finance or pay for, potentially finance and pay for that facility. So they'll be working on that in tandem while we are working with the police chief and his staff, as well as the farmers market folks, to analyze what their space needs are going to be and project what size building they will be wanting to build. We'll do a conceptual design for both the police building, the farmer's market, as well as the parking structure. And then we'll be developing cost estimates associated with that. So the end of this first phase of the study will be what's included in this proposal here is to analyze all of that, bring forth and say, this is the size building you need for your police department, this is how much it's going to cost, this is what we recommend you do for your parking structure, this is what we recommend you do for your farmer's market. Then we can all jointly decide, or you guys can jointly decide which of those projects that you want to move forward with. And then the second part of our work would be the actual being your rep to prepare an RFP for a design-build contract, which is what you identified, how you'd like to procure this project. So depending on the outcome of this study will tell us or tell you how you want to package up the next set of projects, and then we would move forward with writing RFP, soliciting design-build proposals from various design-build contract teams, and then being on board through the duration of the construction of these facilities to act as the owner's representative until you're in those buildings and hand over the keys at the end of it, as we like to say. So that's just a brief overview of the project as we see it, and you have our proposal there in front of you, which I will say again, that includes our work, Desmond's work. We also are bringing in a consultant, F&R, out of their Roanoke office to do preliminary geotech work, soils investigations on the site to understand what kind of foundations these buildings might require, or if there's any special things we need to be concerned about from the site standpoint. So that's all inclusive in this first phase of the project. So with that, I'll just sort of stop and open it up to any questions you may have.
All I'd like to say is, Tim and I've been over the deal on the chief, and Shannon and Gary, and of all of them that we interviewed, Wiley Wilson to me was top notch.
Thank you.
Ask the questions we needed to know, listen to what we wanted.
I would concur with that. I think they put together a very good detailed proposal, and I think they're going to do us a good job for helping us in this planning phase. Just real quick, I know it's in there, but just to get it out, the timeline once again to kind of get where we would have that.
Right. Yeah. So assuming we started, right immediately after this meeting, first of the month or so, we're projecting that we'll be done somewhere in the early October time frame. So I think that would be helpful to, because when you get into January, you start into the planning, for the next year and so forth. So you should have that. This information will be in front of you before you need to go into your planning for next year.
Does anybody have any questions? All right. All right, if not, thank you. Appreciate it. Entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion, we approve the selection as a recommendation of the policy project advisory committee to allow the contract to be executed and proceed with scope of work regarding to this RFP.
Second.
That it'd be wise.
Any further questions or discussion? If not, we'll roll call.
Mr. Schoen?
Aye.
Mr. Stanley?
Aye.
Mr. Haley?
Aye.
Mr. Hartwick?
Aye.
Mr. Johannesson? Mr. Rush?
Aye.
Mayor Black?
Aye.
Motion carries with 7 ayes.
All right, we got one other item.
Yes, Mayor Black, members of council, the last item of new business relates to authorization for purchase of property. For a number of years, the town has leased a tract of land from L&M Properties LLC located on Orange Street and identified as tax parcel 197A7T. The tract is adjacent to the town's landfill and has been used for operations related to the storage, processing, and mulching of trees and underbrush. The town has been advised that L&M is proceeding with plans to sell properties, including the entirety of the tax parcel that includes the tract currently used for our brush grinding operation. In response, the town has obtained an option to purchase a 7-acre tract within the tax parcel at a price of $50,000. 2 other alternatives were actively considered by staff. The first was negotiation of a new lease agreement with a new owner of the entire tax parcel. This alternative was not viewed favorably due to the uncertainty associated with the terms of any potential agreement, as well as the long-term impact of such upon the operation. The second was relocation of the brush grinding operation to another site. The permitting costs alone related to such an action are estimated to be $35,000 in addition to other expenditures that will be necessary. And in consideration of these and other factors, staff recommends that the town exercise its right to purchase the property under the terms of the option, which would secure our ability to continue use of the site for the foreseeable future for these operations, which are both popular and well used by citizens of the town. Tonight, council is requested to approve the attached resolution authorizing purchase of the 7-acre tract within the property currently identified as tax parcel 197A7T, located at 940 Orange Street within the town of Bedford.
We have a motion.
I'll make a motion. The town council is requesting to approve the attached resolution, authorized purchase of the 7 acres of tract within the property currently identified as tax parcel 197A7T, located on 940 Orange Street within the town of Bedford.
Second.
Any discussion, any questions?
Mr. Berry, when's this scheduled to close?
Well, it hasn't been scheduled because you have to exercise the option first.
Right.
I
So,
thought we had already exercised.
no, that's what we're doing now.
Oh, okay.
We're exercising the option that'll go to
Approve the option. That way.
I thought we already done the option.
Right, no.
Meetings ago. But anyway, I'm sorry.
And then we talked about how we would fund this. I know this is an unbudgeted item again, but I think we're planning on using some of that landfill closure money that we still had set aside to fund this. Is that correct, Sonia?
That's correct.
Okay. And obviously, like I said, the property committee met, and I mean, we really, to be honest, we don't have much choice. It's one of those things you just gotta do. So,
We had discussed it a couple meetings ago, I recall.
yeah,
DWC, there was just, we had no other choice. I hate that, but that's what it sounded like.
yeah,
If we're to continue the brush cutting.
right. Any other questions, discussion? Not? Roll
Roll
call.
call. Mr. Stanley?
Aye.
Mr. Haley?
Aye.
Mr. Hartwick?
Aye.
Mr. Johannesson? Mr. Rush? Mr. Schoen?
Aye.
Mayor Black?
Aye.
Motion carries with 7 ayes.
I think that's everything. So, we're going to adjourn this meeting till Saturday morning at 9 o'clock for our budget retreat here. And so with that, we're adjourned till Saturday morning. Thank you.